Randy Brigham from Valkyrie Wargaming at the Battle for the Capital GT 2024. So he did take a War Horde list. So we're back to the War Horde. I just want to start off with this so people can kind of see what the archetype's looking like for now. So we have Beast Boss on Squigosaur. Surprisingly, no head Wappas Kill Choppa. I checked BCP to make sure I didn't mess this up. No head Wappa Kill Choppa. Very surprising that, because you know everybody likes to think head Wappas Kill Choppa is mandatory. I'm one of those people that thinks that because of the Dev 1 category. Then we have Boss Snickrat still making his appearance for 95 points. Very important. War Boss, and War Boss. One of those War Bosses with Follow Me Lads. Arguably the best enhancement for this detachment, especially since you the War Boss FAQ and such. Then we have 3 trucks, staples of it. 2 units of Flashgitz, simply 5-man units. Still really good. Guys looking for your Flashgitz, if you put them down because Badrock's gone, don't do that. Bring them for what we call SWAT teams. As we have 2 units of Gretchen, 3 units of Nobz. 2 of those units are what we call SWAT teams. Keep in mind, all of these Nobz do have power claws. If they didn't, I would indicate that, as it's very, very unlikely that people bring big choppas. So as you can see here, he also has 2 units of Squighog Boyz. One of them's a 3-man, one of them's a big brick. I like the flexibility. It could be matchup dependent, whether he sticks them to a big unit or a little unit to see what he can get the most out of them. And then 2 units of Storm Boyz just for straight up scoring and playing. If you don't know, now you know. A SWAT team is 5 Flashgitz, 5 Nobz, and the War Boss all go on the truck. You can swap up the flat SWAT team to have Burner Boys, to have maybe Eludas if you want. Whatever it may be, but that's what a SWAT team is, and I'm very sure that Randy was utilizing the mighty SWAT team. Today's sponsor, Baron of Dice. So Baron of Dice has great dice. They have actually enabled us to give these dice out for our paint competitions. So I greatly advise that you go out there. We have a link in the description for a 5% discount. That's, of course, because nobody likes taxes. Shout out to Baron of Dice, because they are actually customizing orc dice just for us that you guys will be able to get a hold of, and they look exceptional. So shout out to Baron of Dice. Really appreciate you guys, and I really do suggest you get them. I love the actual texture these dice have. So let's take a look at Randy's matchups, as Randy did end up getting 3rd place at this event. He did tie at the end. This is ITC scoring, I believe, so you can get ties if you're within margins of at least 5 points. Therefore, it's really nice that he did so well, but you know, sucks that when you get ties, it feels a little bit weird, right? So for Randy's first matchup, he went into Adeptus Custodi, which, you know, people do know that this can be a difficult matchup. So he has Shield Host, a Blade Champion, and another Blade Champion. 3 Blade Champions, with one of them with Ulrich Mantle. 2 units of Guardians, simply 5-man units. They all have spears. 2 Caladius Grav Tanks, followed by 2 units of Warden, and the new and improved Drakari Venatari Custodes. Sorry, I said and then a Witch Seeker, followed by Lord Inquisitor Draxus. Draxus still making her appearance. You know, everybody likes to put her in the units. Anti-Xenos doing a great job there. Really still involved in all of the, you know, Imperium lists, especially the Custodes, just great with Guardians. So for these Venatari, if you didn't know, now you know, these guys come out from Rapid Ingress. They have a free built-in ingress stratagem, essentially, in their data sheet, meaning they could just do it for free. Of course, it had changed that you cannot use double down on the same one, but the exception to that is if it's actually in the data sheet. So expect to see Venatari in your matchups with Custodes. You're going to have to make sure you run out the field. Very important. You just run up the field, take up space so that they can't actually get on top of you or be safely inside of your transports. But hey, you've seen he has 2 Caladius Grav Tanks. We know that these Wardens are dreaded knowing where they want per phase activation of the Feel No Pain. And Guardians are just simply a great data sheets. Whenever you're playing on top of one of those objective markers, they get rerolls. Blade Champions are excellent for their diverse profiles. This is a difficult matchup, even for War Horde, even for what our classics are. It really does come down to when you do get into these other units that are not the Guardians, such as it's the Wardens. You get into the Guardians, when you get into the Grav Tanks, when you do end up meeting those Venatari, screen them correctly, do you one-shot them with your Squighog Boyz and or your Brick of Nobz, as these Wardens are going to be very difficult to displace. You end up kind of trying to optimize your OC, even putting your Grots in the way, taking advantage of heroic interventions with your Beast Boss of the Squigosaur and the Squigs. This is one of those games that there's very much a good chance that you could end up just being mostly dead at the end, but because he's stuck a bunch of points of Grav Tanks on the field and you're not really going to be spending time interacting with those, you can still get ahead on the mission. Of course, this is a matchup that I do advise you become quite familiar with, and this does take a little bit more of your your intellect and generalship as a orc care player rather than I just cowabunga into you. So this was actually a very impressive win in my opinion from Randy going into Custodes so early, and this is maybe not the most effective or efficient version of Custodian Guard, people would argue, but I think this is actually quite well-rounded of a list. They tend to have an issue when they don't have Cladius Grav tanks with our trucks. Our changes to tank shock means we're not going to be enjoying, easy tank shock into these guys, and they do have some, defense to dev ones. Not that we really have any beast bosses or beast boss on Squigosaurus in this, so it's not really as popular. You just know that you're really hoping those Squighog Boyz get off and their bomb squigs get off when you really need them to. This is a maneuverability game, so keep in mind custodes are going to be very common. They did get fixed. There's not like a deep codex or an understanding for them. You just have to know that they hit extremely hard and you must pace the game correctly in order to beat them. Take advantage of reserves. Don't necessarily rush too early other than trying to deny them points and keeping them in their backfield. It's one of those games where you might consider even a secret mission. Now, we go into his second match, and just he did end up winning that one, 18-point win. I am very interested in how he did such a great gap into that kind of list, as Custodes do have a lot of great tools to beat us, but nonetheless, great job there. Love to see Custodians go down, as we'll see. Quite familiar with the Custodes. Then he has a second game going into Eldari. So Eldari have come down in their dreaded, knowing top of the meta, top of the leaderboards, always bowling everybody around. I think they're trying to find their place now. Orks is something they really never like to see, as we pressured them so extremely hard. So in this matchup, let's see what they had to kind of hold us back. They have Artark Wayleaper, Fugan, and Crimson Hunter, a Falcon, Fire Dragons, very effective. 2 Fire Prisms, they're bringing those boys back, very effective gun platforms. Rangers, Shadow Specters, Shroud Runner, Swooping Hawks. Only 1 unit of Warp Spiders. They usually like to have a little bit more of that, as they're great screening when they start fire and fading. Their flamers are quite crazy for Overwatch. Then we have 3 units of Wind Riders. This is very MSU heavy list, as that's kind of where Drukhari seems to be. And that's not somewhere they necessarily want to be with Orks, as even our diminished units can really take them out. Our SWAT teams, something like Flashgitz, disembarking even a small unit, popping lethal, they're just picking up those Warp Spiders. They're picking up some of those biker units. Getting in combat, there's just have enough volume with their low AP. It really doesn't matter because Drukhari is so squishy, so soft. And their weapons don't really have any optimal profiles to go into. Not to mention, they don't have them on this list, just to make sure they don't. Their indirect weapons, yeah, Shroud Runners. They do have a Night Spinner, and not in this list, but in their faction that would slow down movement. Having Squighog Boyz ignoring that also means you're not slowing them down in that way. So I like to think Squighog Boyz play a big factor in this, as well as staging. Just Eldar right now where they're at don't really have the tools to deal with the pressurized orc. I don't think they're one of our predators. I really think it comes down to Dark Eldar, as they're drastically different in what their profiles entail and what they're bringing to the battlefield. So Randy did put up a 20-point win there. Not super surprising on that one. But we will see the return in this third matchup of Custodes. So he had to go into them again to prove that it was not a fluke. He very much knew what he was doing to Custodes. But in this list, we have just simply 1 Blade Champion, followed by 1 unit of Guardians, 2 Grav Tanks, but he does have 2 units of Wardens, followed by 1 3-man unit of Venatari, followed by another 6-man unit. You're going to see at least 2 of these 3-mans, if not a big 6-man as this. Great profile of Custodes melee, but being able to ingress is just, and have jump packs really kind of makes up for their lack of speed. 2 Witch Seekers, a Caladius Assassin, followed by a Kyra Draxus. So I'm not sure, not that I'm playing Custodes at the moment, to own an army, if they necessarily need a Caladius Assassin or if they should just play into more of their strengths. Kind of seems like the takeaway, but hey, maybe he just didn't feel a need for the sisters to be screening his backfield. So again, this is one of those matchups where you're going to see the list are looking very samey. Oh, he does have so much Seekers, actually. So I guess he just felt like he had enough. But for 200 points, could you try to figure something else out? Another unit Guardians, maybe? I don't know. Whatever. That's on him. But it's one of those things where the lists are all going to look samey, so they're not going to catch you off guard. Is this player someone who just slapped this army together and just trying to figure it out? Or is someone who really enjoys playing Custodes? More time than not, they just someone who kind of picked up the list. They know they can at least go 3-2 in an event with them. It's up to you as the Orc player to really smash them for making such a poor decision into running into the green tide. Like I said, this is a target priority kind of matchup where their Gravis tanks aren't going to be playing the mission. So you're going to want to stay back. Once these Venatari do get into you when they come in from deep strike, it was really up to you as the orc player to take up the space and stop them from ingressing into you, or just to take Storm Boys, Grots, whatever it may be, screening them off, not allowing the target to get in, because once they get into where their target is, they are subject to being counter charges and just straight up picked from something like Squighog Boyz, Nobz, even SWAT teams. If these guys aren't in cover, they get picked up by the Flashgitz from their shooting. It's very much, these guys are kind of like, in their version, glass missiles for their point cost. So it really comes down to wardens, and wardens is really kind of what they're trying to rely on. Doesn't even have character support. It's really just the 4 feel no pain and their straight up profile. I mean, their data sheet that you have to go into. So you can work around that. You just have to be very familiar with their rules. Shout out to Randy for putting up a 20-point win there. Really proving that War Horde still has a place over the Custodians. Squig still pulling their weight in that matchup, in my opinion. Now we get into the interesting parts of his matchup, as these were very, very close games, as he has an 11-point win and then a straight up 10-point tie right here. So in his 11-point win, we have the Blood Angels, and of course the player called himself the new meta. Very suitable. Sons of Sanguiniers just straight up come with great profile buffs into the orcs. Getting +2 strength on something like Chain Swords takes them to strength 6, which is a good break point for orc infantry, even into orc mega nobs. Of course, not good enough for Squighog Boyz, and not enough for Squighog Boyz with War Horde with -1 to wound, but they do still have Power Fist getting to strength 10, which is another great break point for them. Of course, they have, let's take a look at their matchup. Their list. They have Captain with Jump Pack, Artisan of War, Chaplain with Jump Pack, and a Sanguinary Priest with Jump Pack. I will be showing you that just in case you are not as familiar with some of these units, as I expect them to be very, very popular for the next couple of months. So we have the Sanguinary Priest. He's just a basic little boy with a chainsword, nothing really fancy until you look at what he does. So he gives his unit a 5+, feel no pain, and he also increases the armor penetration by that unit by 1. So a lot of things are sitting at AP -2, takes them to AP -3. Really good to see that. But one thing you must keep in mind is that they have access to the Red Rampage, which is a stratagem that gives them lance and lethal. So unlike Gladius, where they're looking for additional AP because of that, they don't, the people would think their version of this strat is better. In this case, because you have his data sheet ability for additional AP and you still get lance and lethal, that becomes quite potent into most armies, and something that you need to keep in mind, because you're already breaking some thresholds with with the Red Thirst, and they also, of course, get that +1 strength, right? Artisan of War, we showed that earlier. It does give improved armor penetration and the character saved by 2+. That was on the captain from earlier. But expect to see at least one Sanguinary Priest on pretty much all the matchups, and be expected to see Blood Angels. And their lists are going to look all very similar, as Assault Intercessors getting their Chainsword to strength 6. Beautiful. Then you're giving them Lance. Then you're giving them Lethal. Oh, goodness. He has 2 units of those. A Bulb Predator. No, quite effective for 125. Death Company Marines, just simply one unit without Jump Pack, as you can see right here, right? No Jump Packs, but they do have their Power Fist that do get to that break point of strength 10. Death Company Marines with Jump Packs in this one, all Power Fists and Infernal Pistols, so they can hope to get off with those Melta pistols pretty much. A Gladiator Reaper, followed by another Gladiator Reaper. Infiltrator Squads, Land Raider Crusaders, Scout Squad, a Vanguard with Jump Pack. These guys do have a Storm Shield, and these guys are usually the one that the Priest goes with, considering that they have their 4-up invuln and they have their 5-up Feel No Pain because of this. Not to mention that the Death Company get a Feel No Pain as well. This list would work as you're able to use the Reapers to clear those normal screens, right? You throw the Storm Boys forward, well, they guys can hopefully just run through, shoot away the Storm Boys. You got 10 Grots you threw up the field, they have the Gladiator Reaper to clean up those Grots, clean up those units of 10 boys. So I can see why they would bring this. They have their punching for dealing with their big targets, and they have their volume from shooting to deal with chaff and clearing units that are maybe further away, or trying to stage in the middle of the table to block possible charges. But in this case, it's quite well-rounded for what this could be. And this is what they're most likely going to look like when you look at any of these Blood Angels lists. I don't see them very much changing, other than hypothetically, I would say this Land Raider Crusader, some of them might not choose to bring this. But other than that, the Jump Pack units are going to be quite redundant and popular. Here you have the Chaplain with Jump Pack, of course. So Blood Angels list, very, very much part of the meta. I think Art of War rated them as S tier. That's for everybody. It's their own opinion. But let's just keep in mind that if someone's calling them S tier, it means they're at least A tier, and people are going to be jumping on that bandwagon. So be familiar for your fight on death. That's for something where a War Horde comes into play, I think, as as we move into even Nexus or the armies that are going to be good in Nexus is our ability to just fight on death as we want, -1 to wound as we want, and being able to throttle our crit 5s is kind of what separates us from the pack, or at least keeps us in contention with some of these matchups. So this was an 11-point win, very, very, very narrow win, but shout out to him for pulling that through. As in his next matchup, he had to come through again because he went into the World Eater. What the dog doing? So as we just showed with the Blood Angels, and now we're showing with the World Eaters, another pressure army that's kind of closing the distance on you, getting stuck in, trying to just annihilate you as they hit you. As you see the difference between Blood Angels and World Eaters compared to something like Custodes, what is it? Speed, the initiative, being able to place themselves on stage and hit Orks first is very problematic for Orks. We really hate to see that. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about these matchups as to why would Custodes not really be as hard of a matchup for our boy here. Not that they're not hard for Orks as, data sheet per data sheet, but Orks really don't like being put on the back foot. So we have Angron. If Angron keeps coming back, you hate that, right? As you've seen, he doesn't have we don't have certain kind of units that really deal with Angron as easily anymore. He does get access to Fional Pain. He does get access to -1 damage. He could be very problematic. Lord Invocatus allows 2 infantry units to scout for him, or with him, sorry, not for that. So that helps with the pressure. World Eaters get their auto advance 6 stratagem. Very, very problematic. Then we have World Eaters Master of Execution with the Berserker Glaive. I used to call this guy the Master of Indirect Combat because he can blood surge into you. He's automatically fight first. He does ridiculous dev wounds with his Berserker Glaive and the amount of damage he has. He does amazing rerolls. He's very, very annoying. He's even with increases and constant nerfs, he's made his way back for a reason. Jackals, as 2 units of Jackals, this allows them to sticky objectives. Khorne Berserkers, that's literally those Khorne Berserkers are to escort the World Eaters as Master of Executions. 1 Rhino just for those World Eaters, for the 8-bound, not for the 8-bound, excuse me. For the Berserkers. Then we have 1, 2, 3 units of regular 8-bound, followed by only 1 exalted 8-bound. Chaos Spawn. These Chaos Spawns are hideously more durable than you would expect because they already have a Feel No Pain, and then when you choose to give the Feel No Pain army wide, I believe the Feel No Pain goes up to a 4+. They do have a weird amount of volume with their punching, even though they got to roll for it. For 65 points, something like a Storm Boyz unit is going to do absolutely nothing to them for the equivalent exchange. This does become something you need to think about, can take up space on the table. And then a good old Carnivore. The Carnivore is just there because I guess they want a different rapid ingress target. I like Mauler Fiends a little bit better than this, but hey, he decided to Carnivore. Nothing wrong with that. But this is very much similar to, like we said, with the Blood Angels. My boys are just sending missiles up the field. With the new terrain layouts, you can very much just stage, and jump forward. That gives us good hope. But then when there's other armies that can do that better than us, it becomes problematic and leads to very, very hard games. And that's what we've seen here with Randy's War Horde list. Even though War Horde does have something like Fight on Death, if you're playing something else that does not have Fight on Death in your detachments, Cult of Speed, Dread Mom, you can end up, even to Hunt, can end up falling into problems into something like this. But nonetheless, Randy showed that what the War Horde still has his play. Take a look at his list one more time. He did go 4-0-1. So he did get 1 tie in there, didn't end up losing, pulling out that 3rd place. Appreciate it. In his War Horde list, one last time, Beast Boss on Squigosaur, Boss Snake Rot, 3 War Bosses, 1 with Follow Me Lads. I'm sure that helped with the pressure offset, right? Then we have 3 trucks, 2 units of Flashgitz, 2 units of Gretchen, 1 big unit of Nobz, the big scalpel unit, right? You really got a problematic unit, take them out with that. 2 units of Nobz that go along with the Flashgitz for that SWAT team, 2 units of Squighog Boyz, 1 as a chaff kind of trade unit, 1 as the actual missile for the Beast Boss and Squigosaur, followed by 2 units of Storm Boyz. So it's looking similar to the Index Hammer version, but still different, right? The main difference is we didn't have a Snickrot. You'd see Mazrug on every single list. You see a bit more boys, Squighog Boyz heavy, and the Flashgitz would typically be combined and have Captain Badrook. Other than that, back to the basics, back to the bare bones. War Horde has still made his way. Whoa, for Randy Brigham getting 4-0-1. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!